Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Tech Council Conversations. We're here in King of Prussia, PA at the beautiful Capitol Grill. The focus is building a killer sales plan for 2026. Today, our host is Evan Polin from the Polin Performance Group, and he's going to share his over 25 years of industry insight and wisdom to a group of sales and marketing leaders in the technology and cybersecurity space. So let's go inside, see this beautiful restaurant, talk to the people, and hear from the masters themselves. Let me know what you think in the comments, and be sure to check out this Philly Tech Council conversation.
This is meant to be interactive, so ask me questions. Goal is to give you 2, 3, 4 different kind of tools. Pick what's going to work best for you in your world. I've been doing sales training, sales consulting for the last 25 years. Most of my clients are selling services, expertise. They're not selling office supplies, those kinds of things. Everything in the past from IT brokers, staffing firms, consulting, managed services, software, worked a lot in that world. And again, what I want to do is just give you some tools. There's 1 or 2 things that I will show you up here. If you would like to get, I'm going to show you an interactive cookbook in terms of being able to plug in different numbers for average size clients. If any of you want any of those things after today's session, just send me an email. I'm happy to just email that over to you. So, where I like is, quote, if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. So, I have a couple of people that I've worked with, a couple of companies I've gone into, asked them about their sales strategies. It's come down to wishing and hoping and praying. Those are not really good strategies in terms of making sure that you achieve your goals. So what I want to do is give you all of you a framework, some tangible things on, okay, let's figure out what we can control, and let's put together a plan and put together something we can track. The other challenge I find, I'll talk to a lot of clients, they'll set goals in November and December, they'll save them into a file, they'll go back the next November, December, look at it, oh yeah, no, I remember, oh geez, we were way off track. When you're setting goals, it should be a living, breathing document, something that you should be looking at a regular basis. So just keep that in mind as we go through some of this. When you're setting goals in November, December, January, it shouldn't be set in stone. We should set the goals, go back, track, see what's working, see what's not working. But if we don't have that plan, then it's October, November, we're looking at the bottom line. At that point, it's too late to do anything. And I hopefully you guys all have plans so that doesn't happen. Roadmap for success. Again, first what we need to do is define what our goal is. And again, doing a little bit better than last year, that's not really a good goal to have. So it should be very specific. How many new clients, how much revenue. If we're doing year-over-year subscriptions, those kind of models, what percentage do we want to keep? Then what additional do we want to bring in? Along with that, think about, okay, if I want to do $1 million this year, $10 million this year, what do you already have in the bank for this year? Subtract that out to see what the difference is. Then figure out, okay, how many new clients are we going to need to make that up? And then make sure that those numbers are realistic. So if somebody on your team did $1 million last year, if the goal is $10 million this year, unless something major has changed, there is no way that anybody's going to be able to hit that goal. So we want it to be something that's going to be a stretch, but something that come Q4, we're going to be willing to put in that extra work because we're this close to being able to hit it. And the other thing I would just suggest, big picture, as we're setting goals, is you're much better off setting a really tough goal that's difficult to hit and coming a little bit short than you are setting a goal that's really easy to attain. That, you know what, at the end of the year it was really no big deal, and you ended up not doing nearly as much as you would have if you'd set that really big goal.
I think our bosses know that when they set our quotas, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. The other thing I would tell you is, for those of you who have bosses that set quotas for you, make sure that you are attaching something that's really meaningful and important for you for hitting that goal. Because if somebody who we're meeting with once a quarter is setting our goals, and we don't have a lot of say over what that goal is, we can not be really motivated, not be really tied in. But if we go, you know what, if I hit that goal that was set, I'm gonna go on this really nice vacation, or I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z, and you tie something personal to that corporate goal that was set for you, you are going to work almost as hard as your boss wants you to work to be able to hit that corporate goal. But for all, and show of hands, how many of you, at least part of your overall income is based on business that you bring in, whether it's commission, distributions, whatever it might be? So again, it's really good. I am a big believer in that, because that way that keeps us motivated to do the crap that we don't want to do over here. We were joking about people not returning phone calls, not getting back to us. It allows us to do all of that outreach where we know 90% of people may not get back to us. If we know that if we do that on a regular basis, good things are going to come to us if we're able to do that. So I am a big believer in that commission, in that we're making more money. And I'm also a believer in the top salesperson could be and should be making more than the president, the owner, the CEO. If they're the ones driving all of the revenue in, they should be able to see the fruits of that, as long as it's profitable business for the company. As we start to talk about goals, and this is Sales 101, at the top of the funnel, we're starting with leads. Those leads, we're just trying to separate into two piles. Suspect, never going to spend the money, never going to do business, think they know better than everybody else, that's fine. We just want to identify that as quickly as possible. Who are the prospects? And then once we identify who those prospects are, further qualifying those prospects, and then ultimately identifying what percentage of those prospects are going to become customers. Something that I would strongly suggest all of you do, if you haven't already done it, is go back and look at the numbers from last year. Look at how many first conversations we had, or email exchanges back and forth. How many actual qualified appointments did that lead to? What percentage of those qualified appointments led to a proposal, a presentation, a final agreement going out? And then what percentage of those actually turned into business? So again, I spend a lot of time with my clients on qualifying. We're not talking about any of that today, but we should be able to go back and look at those raw numbers. Yes, maybe those numbers can be improved a little bit, but it shouldn't be magic. It shouldn't be wishing and hoping. We should be able to look at real data. Something else I would strongly suggest, if you haven't already done it, I have done this for the 25 years that I've been in business. Every single opportunity that's in my pipeline, I know exactly where that opportunity came from, or what combination of 2 or 3 things led to that. So at the end of the year, I can go back and say, oh my God, I got 40% of my business from referrals. Let me see who those referrals came from. I got 30% from this professional association. Can I do more there? Geez, I've spent all of this time and money doing these other things that haven't led to anything. Maybe I need to look at what I need to drop and what I can replace that with. In a little while, I'll give you an idea of just some different kinds of prospecting ideas. But the more that you can go back and look at that data, the better that you can put together the plan for the next year. So the other thing that we need to make sure that we identify is, what does an ideal customer look like for me? Both what does an ideal customer look like and what does an ideal strategic partner look like? Early on in my career, I wasn't very good at this, and I would go to all of these events and I would never find any of the kinds of people that I wanted to meet. Once I became a lot more focused, I knew exactly what a good client looked like, what a good referral partner looked like. All of a sudden, I found more and more of them. I was able to be a lot more strategic in terms of what events I went to, once I understood exactly who I wanted to meet. For some of you, that may be demographics. As I got into this a little bit more, I also realized that psychographics was a big part of it. So for me personally, not only does somebody need to be in the right industry, need to be selling the right kinds of services, but they need to have the right mindset. And my guess is it's the same for all of you. If you talk to somebody who hates change and they're never going to move off their current provider, probably not a great prospect for you. Or somebody who just wants to go with the cheapest vendor and they don't care about quality, don't care about service, So you should be thinking about both, okay, what industry, what type of person, what titles, but also what kind of makeup do they need to have? What kind of mindset does their organization need to have to make them a really good prospect? And from there, I can ask 2 or 3 of the right kinds of questions and understand very quickly whether or not I'm talking to the right folks. So with that target list, we want to look at a couple things. Do we have a hit list? Do we have a list of 10, 25, 50 companies that we absolutely want to make every effort to get in front of? And I'm going to give them a second to come in and
Evan, on that note, I have a quick question. So, I'm new to all this, so forgive me if this is a dumb question, but is there a realistic amount of companies on a list that one person can handle? Or is it kind of...
So I would say if you put 200 companies on a list, outside of doing automated emails where maybe you get the occasional response, it's not going to be realistic for somebody to do the amount of touches, the amount of research to do the follow-up. I would say I like a rotating list of like 25 to 30. And again, once I get an answer from a company, take them off the list, put the next. I would say I like a rotating list of 25 to 30. And again, once I get an answer from a company, take them off the list, put the next company on the list. But somebody can't realistically have 200 prospects that they're very laser focused on. It's just too much. So I would say 25 or so. And again, just continue to rotate them off and on. And for me, again, my philosophy may not be everybody's cup of tea. I'm okay getting a no. I am going to strongly encourage somebody to tell me no. I'd rather get that no quick and move on and go on to somebody else than to be able to pound and pound and pound and give tons of free consulting to someone who is never going to work with me. And with that mindset, just because somebody's a no now doesn't mean 6 months from now their needs change, leadership changes, something else happens. So if somebody's a no, it's not a no forever. I'm just taking them off of my active list for a little while. And maybe in 3, 6, 9 months, I'm going to go back and revisit and see if anything's changed.
So no means yes, right? No means yes.
So no means not right now. But what I don't want to do is pound and pound and pound. I don't subscribe to the get somebody to say no 8 times before they say yes. I want to have a good adult conversation with somebody. If they've got problems I can help them with, let's talk about whether or not I'm a good fit. If they're not, or again, they're not willing to engage in the conversation, okay, let me check in 3 or 6 months, see if anything's changed.
Yeah. I think that's like a fundamental flaw in like a lot of large companies, because they give you a list of 20 and they tell you go find business in an account XYZ, and then when you come back because they said no, you get hammered on the head with it, right? And you're like, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't have to do it, but the companies don't really find that as an excuse. Not right now, it isn't good for them.
So my response would be, geez, how much do we get paid for every phone call we make to them? How much do they pay us for our proposals? I haven't worked with too many industries where people get paid by the call, get paid by the proposal. So if my boss is forcing me to, okay, fine, but I'm just gonna know in the back of my head, I'm writing it off, and it's the last thing in my day I'm doing. I'd rather focus my time on qualified opportunities that I have a real shot at, or maybe put them into an email marketing campaign, a drip campaign, so they're maybe again identify, okay, if we got case studies, if we just signed up one of their biggest competitors, then maybe I'll make a very targeted outreach with those kinds of things. But I'm not going to do activity just for the sake of doing activity, because I'm not getting paid for that.
I was just going to say, just ensuring you get to the right executive. Before. No could be no with this executive, but could be yes with another executive. So I agree, not hammering down doors when there's a no. Timing is everything. You got to make sure, but also making sure you get the right persona who would be that decision maker is vitally important.
And the other thing I'm doing before I'm doing any cold outreach is seeing if I've got any warm connection into anybody in the organization because I know if I can get referred in, if I can get introduced in, I've got a much better chance of closing that opportunity than by sending out cold emails, making cold calls, doing those kinds of things. So again, I'm looking at that. I'm also, me personally, my philosophy, I'm going top down. I don't want somebody who doesn't have the authority to sign a contract, to sign a check, to tell me no. I'd rather go top down. Gives me a much better chance of the person who I actually need to talk to, them paying attention to me. If their boss told me or their boss's boss told them that they need to talk to me. So I'm also a big believer in that as well. Other questions? So when we're looking at the target list, again, looking at companies, making sure we know what industries. If you've got multiple products and services, what's most profitable? I don't want to spend all of my time going and focusing on services that are really low margin. And quite frankly, if you've got 2 or 3 or 4 different products or services, part of what I'm looking at doing, okay, my annual goal is $10 million. Okay, how much do I want in each of my 3 or 4 buckets? Out of that 10 million, do I want 5 million in one area and then 2.5 of each of the others? But that way I can really be targeted in terms of my prospecting time, in terms of my prospect list, if I know what kind of business I want to drive. So, what business units? Again, for some of you, there may be half a dozen different business units within an organization that you can do business with. Again, especially if you have different products or services. So a no in one doesn't mean that I'm not continuing to reach out to the rest, but just keep that in mind. What services, again, you want to sell? What are the right kinds of titles? And again, go back and look historically. Okay, when I've been successful, who have I been targeting? Who's my first conversation been with? And then let me, again, look up to see who those people are in those roles in my target companies. Or what professional associations can I join that are going to be target rich with all people from those industries with those kinds of titles. And let me work smart rather than just working really hard. As you're looking at targets, I like to break mine up into 3 buckets. And all I care about in each of these 3 buckets is revenue to me and what that client is worth over the course of the year. So rabbits are those small little clients, little bit of revenue. So for you in your world, you should identify what is a rabbit client for you. I will also tell you, the longer you're doing what you're doing, these may shift. So what was a large client for me 20 years ago is now a mid-size or small client now. So those can shift over time. With those rabbits, with those small little clients, they're nice to have come in and they keep the lights on in between the larger ones, but you don't want to focus all of your time there because then you're really busy doing customer service and doing follow-up and not making nearly as much money as you want to make. I also find, and I don't know if it's the case for the rest of you, oftentimes my small clients and my small deals, those are the ones arm wrestling over every penny, and those are the ones where price is everything. So again, I don't want to spend a lot of my time there. Deer are your bread and butter clients. So if you were to identify your ideal services, the ideal kind of amount of money that you were getting, that would be your deer clients. For most of my clients, they're spending 50 to 60% of their time focusing on the deer. I also find, and I don't know if it's the case for the rest of you, oftentimes my small clients and my small deals, those are the ones arm wrestling over every penny, and those are the ones where price is everything. So again, I don't want to spend a lot of my time there. Deer are your bread and butter clients. So if you were to identify your ideal services, the ideal kind of amount of money that you were getting, that would be your deer clients. For most of my clients, they're spending 50 to 60% of their time focusing on the deer. And then elephants are those really large clients. A mistake a lot of people make is they will only elephant hunt. And the problem with those really large clients is they can take a very long time to come in. All kinds of things outside of your control can keep you from winning the business. And quite frankly, the other challenge with elephants, and I'll have a lot of people come to me as prospects, because they had 70% of their revenue tied up in 2 or 3 clients. And if one of those claims goes away, they're screwed and they're scrambling and they don't know what to do. So we want to really diversify and not have all of our eggs in one basket. The other thing I find that happens sometimes with elephants is there can be scope creep. They start to ask for more and more. They know that they're a large client for you, so that they will ask for more than a mid-sized client would. And if you were to start to break it down by the hour or by the product, the profit margin all of a sudden isn't nearly as good as it might be for the mid-sized clients. So again, for a lot of us, 2 or 3 elephants in the course of the year can help to make our year. So we may want to spend 30% of our time, 40% of our time elephant hunting, but we probably don't want to spend 70% of our time elephant hunting. So again, for each of you, we want to have a good mix of the 3, and you want to identify for yourself and in your market what each dollar amount each one is. Because the other thing we know as we put together this plan, you can't manage things you can't control. So what we can control is our behavior, our activity. And again, if we work backwards, and I'll show you how to do it in a minute, and I know that every single month, I need to reach out to 200 people to get 20 conversations, to get 5 qualified prospects, to get 2 closed deals. Guess what? I can control the amount of outreach that I do. And some months are going to be way better. Some months aren't going to be as good. But I know that if I'm consistent on a regular basis, doing what I know I should be doing, at the end of the day, I should be hitting my goal. So what I want to show you, hold on a second, I'm going to pop up here. It's really good. I had one of my former clients who has an accounting background join me earlier last year, so she helped put together this interactive spreadsheet. So if anybody wants this after today, just shoot me an email and I'm happy to send this over to you. But what I would strongly suggest, and now next week would be a great time to do it, is to do the math for yourself. So at the very top here, let me see if my pointer works. At the very top, put in how much overall revenue you want to bring in. Again, new revenue, not what's already in the bank, not what's already booked, but how much new revenue do you want to bring in this year? What is the average elephant worth for you over the course of the year? What is the average deer worth for you over the course of the year? What is the average rabbit worth to you over the course of the year? Then go back and look at your numbers. When we have a final proposal, we have a final contract, what percentage of the time does that actually turn into a signed engagement? What percentage of the time is that person moving forward with us? Then work backwards. What percentage of first meetings turns into a qualified prospect where they're actually getting a proposal, an engagement letter, a contract at the end of the day? And then what percentage of people do I have initial conversations with actually turn into somebody that's a qualified prospect? Because am I the only one in here who reaches out to people who have no interest in talking to me, or they're covered, or they're under a contract, or something else is going on, they don't have a need, they don't have the money? So not everybody I reach out to, am I actually going to have a qualified first meeting? Then what we want to do is again look at, okay, how many working weeks am I going to be selling this week? Nobody's selling 52 weeks. My guess is most of you didn't close a whole lot of business the week between Christmas and New Year's. You know, around here, that 3rd week of August, 4th week of August sometimes isn't as active as other times of year. Hopefully some of you are taking some vacation from time to time. So again, think about how many weeks a year do we have to actually sell. And then as we go down, look at, okay, what percentage of our revenue do we want coming from rabbits? What percentage of our revenue do we want coming from deer, from elephants? This spreadsheet will do the math for you to let you know how many actual clients. So again, in this sample scenario, 7.5, so 8 rabbits, 10 deer, 4 elephants to be able to hit the goal. Again, that's very easily trackable.
It's almost like how much percentage you want to spend time on each category as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And then again, how many closing interviews or final contracts need to go out? how many fact-finding meetings, how many conversations, to then give you at the very bottom, how many contacts per week do we need to have in each category? And now guess what? I can build my week around what I need to do every single day to make sure that I am having the right number of conversations to be able to develop the business that I want to develop. You know, I know a couple of you in here are sales managers, so again, this tool is going to look different for very senior people on the team versus more junior people on the team. In a couple of minutes, I'm going to give you 15, 20 different ideas in terms of prospecting activities. Again, for people who've been in the field for a long time, they're going to be doing different things than people who don't have the contacts yet. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. But hopefully this just starts to give you a framework. Or for those of you who already had a framework, maybe just tweaking that framework a little bit. But again, I know that when I've managed sales reps before, when I've worked with folks, if they know exactly what they need to do week in and week out, it makes it a heck of a lot easier to build that plan, for people to be able to plan out exactly what they're doing, how they're doing that outreach. Again, coming up with that different list of different folks, coming up with different marketing kinds of activities that they're going to get out to the masses versus that really focused sales activity they're going to do for those deer and elephants that they want to get in front of. So before I move on, any questions about this? So on the last slide here, I'll have my email address and I have cards as well. Anybody wants this, I'm happy to email it to you. Just shoot me a quick note and happy to send this over to you. So again, this is just a snapshot of that. So what we need to do, once we know those numbers, is put together a really good business development plan. So many of you in this room have a really good, really robust network. So it's looking at, okay, how can we leverage some of the relationships that we have? Even those of us who have a really good network, there are some prospects that are just outside of our network. So it's going to be a combination of both warm outreach and cold outreach to be able to hit our goals. So again, think about where are you spending your time. For those of you who have been tracking, again, go back and look at which activities, which marketing campaigns, which professional associations, which trade shows, which lists have led to the most success. And again, look at how can we double down on that. So this just will give you a little bit of an idea of some different kinds of business development activities. So professional associations, whether they're industry specific or more general things like chambers of commerce or something like that. Referrals. A lot of people are passively getting referrals. You get that email, you get that phone call. But something I challenge a lot of people on is, are you actively asking for referrals and introductions? Rule of thumb, for every 4 clients you have, they should be bringing you 1 new client each year. So may not be revenue because they may refer you as small to mid-sized clients, but you should be increasing the number of clients you have by 25% each year, strictly through asking for referrals and introductions. If you are not doing that, you are leaving money on the table. And quite frankly, with the referrals, higher close rate, typically shorter sales cycle. So you're leaving the easy stuff on the table, typically a higher margin as well, because you've got credibility, they're not beating you up over price or rate right from the beginning.
Are you talking about incumbents or new? Like, are you talking about clients that you had in your portfolio for a while, or are you talking about new clients?
I am said they should be bringing you net new logos. You should be increasing your net new logos by 25% each year.
I get that, but the clients that you're saying that you have, so you said out of every 4, you should be getting 1. are you considering clients that have been historical to the company? Or are you saying if your sales rep is bringing in 4, they should be getting a new one off of those 4?
I'm saying that the historical clients that they're working with.
Understood, got it.
Yep. Strategic account management. For those of you who have been in business for a while, I find a lot of clients are leaving a lot of meat on the bone by not going back to their current clients. So real quick, I have this acronym up here called CARE. Actually, I need to add, I've added a D to the end of that. So of your client base, which one are what I call keep clients? They give you consistent revenue, but you don't think that they're going to be growing, but you should pay some attention because you should expect about the same amount of revenue for them each year. A stands for attain. So these are your prospects. Who's on that target list of 25 to 50 companies that you want to target over the course of next year? R stands for recapture. Who are those folks that worked with you before? These are clients that you want back. These aren't the bad pay clients. These aren't the ones that you had to chase around. These aren't the ones who drove your teams crazy. But they were good clients, and either maybe they didn't have projects for a while, or maybe they just went away, but we also didn't pay attention to them, that we want to go back after. And where a lot of people are missing the boat, the E stands for expand. Which customers are we working with 1 or 2 divisions, or we're working in 1 or 2 locations, but there's 4 or 5 other locations that we could be working with. Or, you know what? A number of you in the room are from Hitachi. You guys have 1 or 2 divisions. Okay, they're working with one of our divisions, but there's 3 other divisions they could be working with. How do we cross-sell and get them in there to be able to expand our footprint within that client? And here, I'll just wait a second.
And what was the R?
Recapture.
Recapture.
Or even I've done in the past where like Goodwill, I was a client, they do an annual conference, so I asked them, hey, do you guys do where's the national conference? It was in Hershey, and I went and got vendors to sponsor it, and it was great because then they're introducing you to everybody else. But it's very industry specific. We've done that in the past too.
So that's one of the things I really like to do. If I have a client that's really active in a professional association, I'll ask them if there's any way that I can go as their guest to an industry event. They will walk me around the room, introducing me as their provider in that particular area. They could be the only company I'm working with in the industry. Everybody in that room will see me as the industry expert because I am getting walked around in that conference. So that is a great way to leverage the relationship, develop more business. The one that I added on the end is a D for disqualify. We talked to them, or they were a horrible client, we never want them back. So again, we want to keep in mind why we don't want to go back to the well unless something's changed. But there are so many clients that I work with, so many companies that I work with that ignore their client base. There's one client that we went through a leaky bucket exercise with them, where they started to realize that all of a sudden they had business that was dropping off by 15, 20, 25% a year that they were just ignoring. And they developed a whole strategy around how do they just plug the holes in that bucket. Because it doesn't make sense to bring in a lot of new clients if you're losing all of your other clients out the back. So we want that retention along with bringing in new clients. So cross-selling and upselling. Peer-to-peer referral group, something very much like what Keith is building here. Awesome opportunity, awesome way, has always been one of my best ways to expand my business, is meeting people, really developing relationships, knowing them, liking them, trusting them, having an understanding of how they can help my clients, and doing a lot of great cross referrals back and forth that way. Speaking engagements, so no pressure, but my goal is to find 2 or 3 new prospects out of today. But again, speaking engagements, as long as they're speaking to the right audience. Because again, you can go and speak, but if it's not the right group of people, or you're not talking about the right things, it doesn't matter how many rooms you're in front of. Just more general networking groups. Cold outreach, whether it's the cold emails, the cold phone calls. Utilizing LinkedIn. I am a big believer in LinkedIn. I am a big believer in using Sales Navigator. I find that I use Sales Navigator a little bit different than how other people use Sales Navigator. I'm not building lists of 200 or 300 target companies to reach out to through Sales Navigator. I am identifying who my top connections are, and I am going through their LinkedIn connections. And with Sales Navigator, I can do it in about 10 or 15 minutes to identify who in their networks may be good prospects for me, and then being very targeted in my referral conversations when I'm reaching out. Or, okay, let me put in my list of 25 companies that I want to get in front of, and let's see who in my network is connected to somebody in that company, and let me see how I can get warm introductions to that company before I start cold calling them. So, writing articles, writing blog posts, getting involved in charities, getting involved on boards. Typically, what types of people sit on boards of organizations? Typically, decision makers, successful people with a lot of money, people who may not necessarily take our cold calls if we were to cold call in, but people like to work with people that they like, people like themselves. So I wouldn't join a charity board just for business, because people will see right through that. But if you've got a genuine interest in an organization, getting really involved will put you in front of some of the right people that can help you develop those relationships that over time can turn into business. And then what you should be looking at is, okay, what should I be doing on a daily basis? Cold calls, cold emails, asking for referrals. What should I be doing on a weekly basis? What should I be doing on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis? Making sure that feeds back into the cookbook in terms of the amount of activity that you said you needed to do. And again, being able to just flush that out, write that out for yourself. And then whether it's in your CRM or somewhere else, tracking, am I doing what I said I was going to do? And are the ratios that I put down initially working out to be true, or do I need to tweak it? Maybe I need to talk to a couple more people to get more first meetings. Or maybe my closing percentage wasn't as high. Maybe I need to do a little bit more, have more final proposals go out to hit that closing percentage. And what we need to do is make a commitment and put that commitment in writing. But what activities, what things are you willing to do so that you can make sure that you can achieve your goals for 2026? And then, how is that accountability going to work? Do I already have a sales manager or somebody else holding me accountable? Do I have, if I own a business, another business owner, someone who we're holding each other accountable? But first, if you don't have the goals, it's going to be really hard to achieve them. Then you have to have those goals in writing, because if we have them in our head, it's really easy to tweak them based on what's going on. And then if somebody's not actually holding us accountable, then if nobody really knows what we're supposed to be doing, again, makes it a little bit more difficult, and we don't have that accountability. And then again, from one of my favorite shows from Ted Lasso, once we put the plan in place, we need to believe, because if we believe, then we'll actually take action and do the things that we committed to doing to making sure that we hit the goal. So, what kind of questions?
Can you go back to the sales roadmap, the first one you had there? I think it was the first slide to start. Yeah. So on Monday, I'm going to do this with the sales team, where I require them, what I don't see up there is firing clients. And on Monday, I'm going to meet with all my salespeople and make them fire 10% of their clients. One of my favorite exercise. Where in your position, in your opinion, where does that fit into the roadmap?
That would then be determining the amount of new revenue we need to achieve. Okay, we're going to subtract that from the revenue that we thought we had in the bank. So that fits between 2 and 3. But I am a big believer in that, and a lot of professional service firms that I've worked with in the past, because they don't have enough bodies to actually do all of the work, will look to fire their bottom 10 to 20% every year to bring in higher level, better paying, better margin kind of work. So I would say that fits in between 2 and 3. Once they fire it, that's going to make this number 3 a little bit larger number,
right,
than where they started off. but I am a very big believer in that.
Got it, thanks.
Great question. Any other questions?
Can you go through your LinkedIn sales nav process again, a little slower?
Sure. So what I do is go into Sales Navigator.
Not that slow, no, I'm kidding.
Yeah. And let's say you and I are going to, I know that you and I are getting together for lunch, and we've got a really good relationship, and I know that there's a pretty good chance that you would want to help me if you could. So I will go into Sales Navigator, I'll put your name in, I'll say, okay, I want to see all of your second connections, so people you have relationships that I don't know. Then I'll put in all of the demographics. Is there a geographic area? Is there a size of company? Is there a title? Do they need to be a certain level of seniority? And that will probably whittle down your LinkedIn list of a couple thousand people to 20 or 30 people. And then I'll start to go through and figure out of those 20 or 30, which ones I think I might want to meet. I'll create a little Word document for myself. And then when we sit down, I'll say, geez, was wondering if you'd be open to a conversation. If you're not comfortable, just let me know. Really looking to grow and try and get in front of a couple of new clients this year. Saw you were connected to a couple of people that might be good for me to know. Do you mind if I ask you about a couple of folks to see if you know any of them well enough and you think any of them might be open to having a conversation?
So that would be in like peer-to-peer networking type of situation. What would you do for your meeting with a prospect or a customer?
So with a customer, my first rule, and again, I do a couple hours on asking for referrals. I am not jeopardizing a current relationship for the hope of maybe getting a referral. So I'm starting the conversation by finding out how we're doing. If they're unhappy for whatever reason, I'd rather find that out while they're still a paying client, and I'm going to drop the referral conversation and fix whatever problems we need to fix. If they're happy, I'm going to do the same thing. Hey, was wondering if I could ask you a question. If you're not comfortable at all, let me know. They're going to brace themselves for a rate increase. When they realize that we're not going to be charging them more money and that's not the uncomfortable conversation, they'll have a small sigh of relief. I'll share with them that my best clients come from introductions from people who are already working with me. And I'll ask them if they'd be open that if they knew of anybody who might be a good fit. Once they agree, I know that if I don't do the research in advance, if I ask them for a referral, they're going to go, geez, Evan, I really can't think of anybody, but if I do, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
And then that phone call will never come. But if I say, hey, look, I came up with a list of like 10 or 15 people from your LinkedIn. I know that most people only know 10 or 20%, so I'll make it okay for them to tell me no to most of the list. I almost always come away with 1 to 3 names of people that they'll be willing to make an introduction to. Next, what I want to do is make sure that they'll actually follow through. So I'd say, geez, really appreciate it. When do you think you'll have a chance to talk to them next? I'll have them tell me their time frame, and then I'll say, when should I follow up with you so you can tell me whether or not they were open to having a conversation. So I'm not saying, hey, it's Friday, can I call you Monday? It's, when do you think, when would be a good time to follow up? But if you tell me to follow up with you next Friday, much better chance you're actually going to make that outreach on my behalf. If you know I'm going to follow up because you told me to follow up then.
You're putting them in charge.
I'm putting them in charge, but there's going to be accountability, and it's much more likely that they're going to follow through.
Keith, I'd like to thank you very much for inviting me to the Philly Tech Council. For all of you who listen to this recording, thank you. I hope that you enjoyed the program, Developing a Killer Sales Plan for 2026 and beyond. If anybody would like to get a PDF of the handouts, if anybody would like that cookbook exercise, please reach out to me. You can email me at Evan, EVAN, at Polin, POLIN, P like Paul, G like George.com. You can visit my website at polinpg.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn. I hope you found this valuable, and I hope to see you at another event.